It's 1943, 30,000 feet above Nazi Germany, a B-17 flying fortress is hemorrhaging fuel and fire, 3 engines dead, the pilot's oxygen mask is frozen to his face, and out of nowhere a silver shape materializes from the sun, closing at over 400 miles per hour. The German FW-190 pilot lines up his shot. Then from his 6 o'clock something screams in faster than anything he's ever seen. One burst, the threat is gone. The bomber limps home, the pilot of that silver shape, he never even radioed in. He just turned around and went looking for the next one. That machine was the North American P-51 Mustang, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why even Hermann Goering himself said that when he saw Mustangs over Berlin, he knew the war was lost. When America entered World War II in December 1941, its Air Force was a collection of half-developed experiments, borrowed British designs, and machines that had no business fighting seasoned Luftwaffe veterans. The Army Air Forces were outgunned, outranged, and in the Pacific being systematically dismantled by a Japanese Zero that pilots had been told didn't exist. What followed over the next 4 years was the most compressed, brutal, and consequential aircraft development program in human history. The United States produced over 300,000 military aircraft during WW2, one every 294 seconds at peak production. They didn't just build planes. They built the doctrine of air supremacy that still governs every conflict from the skies over Ukraine to the contested airspace of the Taiwan Strait today. General Henry Hap Arnold put it plainly, the nation that controls the air controls the war. Every aircraft in this video proved him right or taught a blood-soaked lesson about what happens when you don't. The shark-toothed bruiser that held the line when nothing else could. The P-40 Warhawk wasn't beautiful, it wasn't revolutionary. At 360 miles per hour with 6.50 caliber wing guns, it was slower than the Zero and outclimbed by the Messerschmitt Bf-109 at altitude, but it was there when nothing else was. Rugged, reliable, and terrifyingly effective in a dive, it could absorb punishment that would shred a more sophisticated aircraft. In December 1941, the American volunteer group, the legendary Flying Tigers, took worn P-40BS over the skies of Burma and China and used pure tactical cunning to achieve a kill ratio that stunned the world. Their commander, Claire Chennault, had cracked the code, never dogfight a Zero, dive, slash, and run. Pilot David Lee Tex Hill flew the shark-mouthed P-40 on missions so violent and so low that ground crews could smell cordite on the fuselage when he landed. They had no radar, no ground control, sometimes no food, they flew anyway. The P-40 never got the glory, it got the job done while America figured out what glory actually looked like. But the P-40 was fighting yesterday's war. The next aircraft America built was designed to fight tomorrow's. Twin-boomed, twin-engined, and utterly unlike anything the Axis had ever seen, the Lightning arrived like something from another decade. Capable of 414 miles per hour with a combat range exceeding 1,000 miles, the P-38 was the first American fighter that could genuinely threaten the Japanese anywhere in the Pacific. Its armament, 4.50 caliber machine guns and a 20mm cannon, all centrally mounted in the nose, eliminated the convergence problem of wing guns. Every single round hit exactly where the pilot aimed. On April 18, 1943, 16 P-38s flew a mission so precisely timed and so deeply classified that its pilots weren't told the target until they were already in the air. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, architect of Pearl Harbor, the single most strategically dangerous man in the Imperial Japanese Navy, had his flight schedule intercepted by American code breakers. The P-38s flew 600 miles at wave-top height to avoid radar detection, climbed at the last moment and shot down his transport over Bougainville. Rex Barber and Tom Lanphier, neither ever definitively credited, killed the Japanese war machine's most brilliant mind from the cockpit of a machine that wasn't even supposed to exist yet. Yamamoto's death didn't end the Pacific War, but it ripped out its spine. The enemy had codenamed it Two-Tailed Devil. They weren't wrong. But if the Lightning was a precision instrument, the next American fighter was something rawer, angrier, and built for pure punishment. 16,000 pounds of radial-engined Rage, the largest, heaviest single-engine fighter ever built to that point, and an absolute beast in every sense of the word. The Thunderbolt's Pratt & Whitney R2800 engine generated 2,300 horsepower and could absorb battle damage that would stop any inline engine cold. Pilots called it the Jug, short for juggernaut, not the bottle, though both applied. 8.50 caliber machine guns could fire 800 rounds per minute each. It carried more firepower per sortie than a fully loaded WW1 squadron. On October 14, 1943, Black Thursday, 291 B-17s attempted to bomb the Schweinfurt ball-bearing factories deep inside Germany. 60 bombers never came home. The escort fighters of the time couldn't reach the target. But as the survivors limped back toward England, P-47 pilots from the 56th Fighter Group, Zemk's Wolfpack, screamed out to meet them, engaging Luftwaffe fighters in running battles across the Dutch coastline. Hub Zemk's pilots didn't just escort bombers, they hunted. By war's end, the 56th Fighter Group had destroyed more enemy aircraft than any other unit in the 8th Air Force. The Thunderbolt didn't just protect bombers. It redefined what a fighter could carry: rockets, bombs, and napalm, making it history's first true multi-role combat aircraft. 3 nations tried to build something like it after the war. None got the formula right. What came next, though, made even the Thunderbolt look like a warm-up act. If the Thunderbolt was a hammer, the Mustang was a scalpel, except this scalpel could fly to Berlin and back and kill everything it touched along the way. The P-51D's Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, mated to a supremely efficient laminar flow wing, pushed the airframe to 437 miles per hour with a combat range of 1,650 miles, enough to escort bombers all the way to Berlin, engage the Luftwaffe's finest over the German capital, and return home. Nothing the Axis had could match it at altitude. Nothing. In early 1944, the 8th Air Force's daylight bombing campaign over Germany was failing. Loss rates were unsustainable. Crews flew with the quiet arithmetic of the condemned. Statistical probability of survival over a 25-mission tour was less than 50%. Then the Mustang arrived in theater in force. The strategy shifted. Instead of protecting bombers, Mustang pilots were told to range ahead, seek out Luftwaffe fighters, and destroy them on the ground, in the air, anywhere. Colonel Don Blakesley of the 4th Fighter Group flew over 500 combat hours. James "Jabby" Jabara became America's first jet ace, but he flew Mustangs first, and what he learned in those cockpits over Germany made him lethal for the rest of his life. Goering said it. The moment he saw Mustangs over Berlin, the Reich's air war was over. The P-51 didn't just win air superiority, it made the Allied ground campaign possible. But while the Army Air Forces were carving up the Luftwaffe over Europe, a different war, a carrier war, an island war, a war measured in coral and blood, was being decided by an entirely different kind of aircraft, built specifically to kill the Zero, and it succeeded so completely that the Zero never truly recovered. The Hellcat carried 2,000 horsepower, 6.50 caliber machine guns, and armor plate behind the pilot's seat thick enough to stop 20 cannon rounds. It climbed faster than the Zero, dove harder, and absorbed firepower that would have turned lighter aircraft into debris. Grumman engineers, under direct operational feedback from Pacific combat pilots, took the earlier F-4F Wildcat and solved every single problem it had in 18 months, while simultaneously producing aircraft at a rate that stunned even American factory observers. In the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot, June 1920, 1944, American Hellcat pilots shot down 373 Japanese aircraft over 2 days while losing 23 of their own. It wasn't a battle, it was the methodical dismantling of the Imperial Japanese Naval Air Service. Commander David McCampbell, flying from USS Essex, shot down 9 aircraft in a single engagement, a record that still stands. He landed with literally less than 5 gallons of fuel remaining. The Zero had terrified the Pacific for 3 years. The Hellcat ended that terror in 18 months of combat. Kill ratio 19 to 1. The Pacific War produced one more aircraft so feared, so singular, that naval commanders on both sides changed their entire operational doctrine around it. The gull-winged Angel of Death, a machine so fast and so violent that the US Navy initially refused to deploy it from carriers, leaving it to the Marines who had no such hesitation. The Corsair's Pratt & Whitney R2800 engine, the same powerplant as the Thunderbolt, pushed it to 446 miles per hour, making it the fastest Allied piston-engine fighter in the Pacific. Its inverted gull wing solved the propeller clearance problem created by its massive four-bladed prop. Japanese pilots called it whistling death. You didn't see it coming, you heard it, and by then it was already past you. Major Gregory "Pappy" Boyington led VMF 214, the Black Sheep Squadron, flying Corsairs from primitive jungle strips against overwhelming odds. His pilots were rejects, transfers, and problem cases. He made them killers. Boyington himself shot down 28 confirmed enemy aircraft before being shot down over Rabaul in January 1944 and spending 20 months in a Japanese prison camp, refusing, even under interrogation, to give them anything of value. The Corsair fought in Korea after WW2. It flew combat sorties in Central America as late as 1969. No other piston-engine fighter served in sustained combat across 3 decades. Whistling Death didn't retire, it evolved. Here is what these aircraft tell us, not about machinery, but about the civilization that built them. In 1939, the United States Army Air Corps ranked 18th in the world by combat capability. By 1945, it had produced the most powerful, most technically advanced, most combat-proven air force in human history in 6 years. The men who flew these machines were not born warriors. They were farmers from Kansas, mechanics from Detroit, teachers' sons from Georgia. They learned to kill at altitude in machines that gave them no margin for error, flew missions that statisticians said were unsurvivable, and came home, those who came home, to raise children who would build the Cold War deterrence that still shapes geopolitics today. The P-51 escorts the B-17s over Berlin. The Hellcat sweeps the sky over the Marianas. The Corsair screams low over Rabaul. These weren't machines. These were decisions. National decisions, industrial decisions, moral decisions, made metal and given wings. Goering was right. The moment the Mustang appeared over Berlin, the outcome was sealed, not because of the aircraft, because of what the aircraft represented, a nation that, when forced to fight, would outthink, outbuild, and outfly anyone on Earth. The sky was never neutral, it was always a weapon, and America learned to own it.